All right, while everyone is getting settled, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dana Aldridge. I am one of the board of trustees here at St. Paul. I came on the board about 3 years ago, and thanks to my good friend Cynthia, I work with Cynthia, and she hounded me to, you've got to talk to Neil Blair. You've got to come talk to Neil Blair. He wants you to be on the board. I dodged Cynthia left and right. I was not going to succumb to that. She was successful. She finally got me to do a meeting with Mr. Blair here. And man, he had me hooked. We know Neil is that type of guy that if he can get you in a room for 5 minutes, you become his best friend. And that's pretty evident by the host of people that came out here tonight. So we're going to kick this off. Neil, I think they told me this is like a roast, like Saturday Night Live roast. So I'm going to be down on the floor with the mic. We're going to be running around. Everyone come up with your worst story about Neil, and we're going to have some fun. So, no, I'm going to tame it down a little bit. They told me this is a seminary. I've got to bring it down a little bit. I cannot be a Saturday Night Live skit. I'm going to watch my language. Yeah, I come from the business world, and sometimes the church world and the business world collide. So, all right, well, we are going to kick it off. Sally Firestone was going to do our opening prayer. Sally was unable to come tonight, and so in Neil Blair fashion, I just told his niece about a minute ago that, hey, did your uncle tell you you're going to do the opening prayer? And she said, you're joking. I said, no, actually, you are. So let's welcome to the stage, Brenna Hyatt.
Well, in all honesty, I said you're joking, right? Because I thought I had to come up with this very formal prayer at a school of theology for everybody, but it's already written out. So I am just going to share the words that were already prepared. So friends, would you please join me in prayer? Heavenly Creator, we gather this evening to lift up in appreciation the service and ministry that our friend and family member, Reverend Neil Blair, has given through his decades of work in the United Methodist Church and at the St. Paul School of Theology. We are assembled here to thank Neil for his leadership of this seminary. With perseverance, he has always and continues to be committed to the formation of people for innovative, creative ministry. Guided by the lessons he learned at St. Paul, Neil has ensured that the seminary possesses the resources to educate generations of clergy who serve communities across our nation. We give thanks for the time that Neil has shared as he has pursued this work. The gospel hymn, If I Can Help Somebody, describes the theme running through his counsel, friendship and leadership, which have proven to be blessings to all of us. With gratitude for the innumerable gifts you bestow upon us, we thank you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, so we have several different speakers tonight, all chosen, I think, by Neil to come and do some talking. So We're going to go a little out of order as we wait to see if some of our guests who are caught up in the airport are going to make it. So just kind of go with me here. We're going to just kind of go on the fly. So there is a reason we gave you airplane snacks and not a real meal. We don't want you to get, we don't want the speakers that Neil has chosen to get too long-winded. So we only are providing snacks. So if you guys, if these guys start going too long, I want you to give them the sign. So let me get my agenda so I know who's next. Okay, so the next person we're going to bring up here to talk, he is no stranger to the St. Paul School of Theology. Tex Sample has been a faculty member from 1967 to 1999. He currently serves on our board. He was last our board chair the previous year. Tex has written many, many books. If you know Tex, he's an avid storyteller. We'll probably get a few stories tonight. They might even have a story about baseball if I'm going to put my money on anything. But Tex Sample is a great friend of President Blair, and so we can't have an evening of celebrating Neil without having Tex speak.
I was told 10 minutes, that's why I have the computer, okay? And now if I get that, oh, good. I'm always pleased when tech works, Look, everybody knows Neil, and if they know him, he can raise money, okay? He can raise money in a collapsed stock market, all right? In a closed church, in a bankrupt business, and even from St. Paul grads, trustees, and faculty, all right? Jesus turned water into wine. Neil transubstantiates institutional debt into endowment, okay? When Neil left St. Paul the first time after 19 years, he and Lovett Weems had put together an endowment of $50 million. When he returned, the endowment was down to $26 million, almost a 50% loss. Things like the economic crisis of 2007-2008 do happen. But that endowment has now increased $6 million, or 20% during his time as president. A figure that would be even larger if we had not gone through the economic downturn of the past year in the national economy. But the school is debt-free, and we are not drawing the maximum from our endowment or assets. But we also forget to talk about the other things that Neil does well. I think the first thing we might say is that Neil has considerable people strength. He knows how to relate to people from the farmlands of the Midwest to the CEO offices of our city, from people behind the counters at McDonald's and Wendy's to professional people from across the region. I don't know if you know this about Neil, but I've seen it happen on more than one occasion. If he goes into a hamburger place, just a regular, fast food kind of establishment, he will very often give $20 each to every person behind the counter. It's just something he does. It's part of a generosity that simply characterizes his life. Second, in his tenure as president, he has put together one of the finest executive leadership teams in the history of the school. Please remember, we've had many excellent people serving these administrative posts in the past. And I mean no disrespect for them. But as a total group, we can now say that this is one of the very best we ever had. And basically, Neil put that together. Note, too, how few people we've lost at St. Paul, that is, who left. Few people have gone to other positions from our school. Third, does anyone remember when he came to the presidency? We were working out of 2 buildings in Kansas. We needed to close the facility at Fox Hill. And with staff support, he had help. In fact, Neil would always say, look, I had help in everything we did. So let's be clear about that. But with staff support, he got us out of that contract and got us exclusively on the Kansas campus into the Church of the Resurrection for a very good deal there. Not only that, he needed to remodel that end for the purposes of a theological school. And Neil raised $1.1 million to get that done. Okay. Fourth, do you remember that he negotiated a very good contract? Yes, and he was working with a very generous Church of the Resurrection and its pastor, Adam Hamilton. But still, we got a very good deal here at the Church of the Resurrection. And it was Neil working with Adam and with the church. Fifth, during his tenure, the school completed assessments by both the Association of Theological Schools and by that of Higher Learning. He got to school off probation. Yes, he had a lot of help. He knows that. But we are off probation. Not only that, we got really good better than good comments from those folks. Neil would say, again, that he was merely a member of the team, but he made a substantial contribution in every one of these efforts. Finally, in an incomplete list, the school's future looks good in terms of what is called coverage ratio. That is, if you divide a school's endowment by its annual expenses, you get the coverage ratio. We are now 17th from the top among freestanding seminaries in the entire United States. And then a personal word. I think anybody who knows me well knows that Peggy and I had a son who was a serious alcoholic. And he had abused alcohol and other drugs from the time he was about, let's say, 14 years of age. When he was in his 20s, he was running, he and his brother, from a group of guys who were going to beat them up. He had a pistol. The best account I can get is that he fired the pistol at the ground, not at those young people. The bullet ricocheted, hit one of them in the arm. It was a flesh wound. He went to the hospital, got it sewed up, bandaged, went home. Because it was not a serious injury, Steve was not put in jail. But he was put on probation. And you know what he did next, right? He broke probation. So they put him in the county jail in Platte County for 6 months. At the time, Neil was a student of mine at St. Paul. And I've heard this story from Neil and from Steve, and I would remind you that Neil Blair has an awfully good oral memory. If you ever tell him something, he can just about remember it word for word 40 years later. And I've known him that long, okay? Anyhow, Neil decided he would go and visit Steve in the Platte County Jail. He walked in up there, told him he was there to see Steve, and they told Steve, and he came down. Now, if you knew Steve at that time, angry to beat 60, I can put it in more graphic language. When Steve walked in and looked at Neil, he said, "Who the hell are you, and what the F are you doing here?" Neil said something to the effect, "Well, I'm a student of your father's, and I'm a friend of your father's, and I figured you'd rather be sitting here talking to me than sitting up in that cell all by yourself." That's the way it began. Steve stayed long enough for them to talk. And then Neil Blair went to the jail every week from that time on. Steve later joined a biker AA club. He loved motorcycles, Bishop. And he began to deal with this issue of a higher power. And he got sober. In fact, he was sober the last 7 months of his life, got his life straightened out, got a good job, got engaged, and was about to be married. He had an accident where he was totally in the right. A guy simply couldn't see him because of the sun, ran a stoplight, hit him, and killed him. Somebody once said to us, if you can get a son like Steve to live to 30, if you can just keep him alive until he's 30, he'll be all right. Steve missed that a few months. But what got him right, I believe, basically, was not only that AA biker gang, but Neil Blair. That pastoral relationship was a major factor in the saving of our son's life.
Thank you, Tex. So our next speaker, someone else who is very familiar with St. Paul, Dr. Weems. I was visiting with Neil this week. We were all talking to each other on the phone, and I knew that Dr. Weems was on the program tonight, and Neil probably mentioned you. We talked for about 30 minutes, and I think Neil probably mentioned your name 7 times. So, Dr. Weems has served as a seminary president here at St. Paul for 18 years. He was the founding director of the Lewis Center in 2003. He's a distinguished professor of church leadership. He's senior consultant of the Lewis Center for Church Leadership at the Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C., and a great mentor to Neil. One of the things Neil told me this week, love it when I was talking to him, is he said, the reason I was successful as president was because I served under Dr. Weems for so long. So welcome to the stage tonight, Lovett Weems.
Great. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be invited to be here and say words on behalf of my dear friend Neil Blair. When I first knew Neil, he was a pastor in Missouri. And a few years later, we were needing a development officer at the seminary. And Tex Sample, among others, had said some really good things about Neil. And I decided despite that, I really needed to go talk to him. And so we got together at the Burger King at the Bethany exit. And he should have known that's about the highest kind of establishment he and I ate at when we didn't have a donor with us. And I could fill the whole evening with just our stories of all the jams we got in and all the predicaments. But I'll just share one. Neil and I were to meet in a particular city for 2 events that evening. Later in the evening, one of our trustees was going to have a dessert event at her home to meet new people there. But before that, Neil and I were going to take an older woman who was leaving a good bit of her estate to the seminary to take her to dinner. So we pick her up and we go to this cafeteria that was her favorite place, and Neil and I each had been there with her before. But we were running so late that Neil reminded me that as soon as we got to town, we were supposed to call this trustee about the details for the evening. And I said, Neil, don't worry about that now. This was before cell phones. I said, we can't be late. So I said, here's what we do. During dinner, why don't you just excuse yourself and use a payphone? Again, most of you will remember what those were. Use a payphone to call the trustee. He said, okay, I'll do that. And sure enough, about midway through dinner, Neil says, would you excuse me, please? And so he gets up and he goes toward the restrooms, which were that way. The only problem was the payphone was that way. And between them, you had this area where you're in a cafeteria, people line up to go through the line, and there'll be this little dividing wall that comes up to about here running along there. So I'm wondering, how is Neil going to get from there to there? And I look and I notice this back. Excuse me. He was just going down. This back kind of moving along. And then I'd notice you'd see this hand go up and take the receiver off. And then a hand would go up with a quarter, and a hand would go up and dial. And so, but he didn't return for a while. And our guest said, well, should you go check on Neil? Oh, no, Neil's fine. But later, he was staying so long, she took the napkin from her lap and threw it down and said, if you don't care about Neil, I do. I'm going to go check on him. I said, no, you sit down. Let me go check on him. So I went toward the bathrooms, but of course I've got to get, so I'm down. Excuse me. I'm happy to go. Neil is there, down on one knee. I said, Neil, why are you staying so long? He said, the line's busy. Again, if you're very young, you'll have to ask somebody about that as well. I said, well, Neil, we've got to get you back to that table now, no matter what we do. But he came on staff And when he did, I discovered that he had actually worked for the seminary one time before. He had been employed as a member of Raymond Zulig's maintenance staff for one day. So he had a one-day employment record already. So we had to set him up for a new one. But what a great job Neil did. First of all, with building up our St. Paul Council that had been established a few years before. Neil lived and died over St. Paul Council. But also, as Tex mentioned, our fundraising built up the endowment from the smallest of the seminaries to a very respectable size. And then there was a matter of raising $20 million that was raised and spent over 20 years for the renovation of the campus. I was privileged to serve for 18 years. I ran into someone recently, and it was very touching at first. This person said, "I remember when you were president of St. Paul." I said, "Really?" "Well, in fact, I came to hear you speak." "Really?" "Yes. I was with my grandfather. I was a little girl." I said, "No." Well, Neil was with me of those 18 years, 15 years. And there's nothing we accomplished that would have been possible without what Neil did. Neil and I complimented each other. And working with him was always a joy. Then he was away from St. Paul for a few years. Then he came back as president. And again, he faced a critical time in the life of the seminary and renewed connections with the network of support on which any seminary depends. He expanded that network. And as he's done everywhere he has served, was able to raise great sums of money for the mission of the seminary that he was serving. Neil faced what I never faced, and that was some external challenges. That is, where you're having to deal with some of the groups, regulatory groups, and accrediting groups where there's been a negative assessment. Those are very hard to engage. And Neil worked at that in a way that, as one who had never had any experience in this world before, but did it with great skill, learning what was needed, but also learning to surround himself with people who knew more about different aspects of that, who could really not only survive it, but get a great bill of health. And so St. Paul is in a very strong position today because of that leadership. I said when I first came to know Neil, I knew him as a pastor. And now, as I think about him as a pastor. You know, I used to think that development was just a euphemism for fundraising. But I discovered long ago that that's not the case. Fundraising is about developing relationships that lead to trust, that lead to giving. And there's a sense in which Neil has been pastor of a congregation that perhaps has the broadest geography of any congregation known to anyone. He has the pastor's heart. He has been there, as you've already heard this evening, not just that one time or with that one family, but he has been there over and over and over with anyone who has that need. Neil, I am honored to call you a friend, and I want to congratulate you. You have come to this retirement deserving every word of praise that's offered, and it's been a joy to work with you.
Thank you, Lovett. So our next presenter can't be here with us physically tonight. Pastor Adam Hamilton is the lead pastor of Church of the Resurrection. He can't join us tonight, but he sent a recorded message for Neil. So we're going to cue that up.
Hi, my name is Adam Hamilton. I'm the senior pastor at Church of the Resurrection, and I wish I could be with you tonight. I'm unfortunately traveling overseas, lecturing on the lands of the Bible, but I really wanted to have a chance to say thank you to my friend, to St. Paul School of Theology President, Neil Blair. Neil, I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for the love that you have for people. You are such a people person and a people connector, for the love that you have for Christ and the work of the kingdom of God, and for the love that you have for St. Paul School of Theology, for its students, its mission, its faculty and staff. It's evident to anyone who knows you. You devoted so much of your life, 19 years as the Vice President of Institutional Development, 7 years as President of the seminary, because you believe in this place. And it is better because you are here. In fact, I will say it exists because you are part of St. Paul School of Theology. I have loved the fact that as a donor, you regularly reach out to me when I forget to turn my check in. I know I'm going to get a note from you. I'm going to get a call from you. And you do that with so many people. But I love the fact that when I watch you with our donors, you really love them. You didn't just do this as your job. You actually love each of those people. I think about your care for Mel Winger and so many other people that you have given yourself just to bless them and be their shepherd and their pastor. And I have felt that personally as well. Thank you for your vision, for your leadership, for your dogged determination to see St. Paul School of Theology have a future with hope. I am proud to call you my friend. I'm grateful to call you a co-laborer in Christ. And I'm excited for you as you begin this next chapter in the great adventure God has in store for you. I know God is not finished with you yet. You've got a lot more yet to accomplish for the kingdom of God. But I'm so grateful for the years that I've had a chance to know you, watch you up close and personal, learn from you, and to stand side by side with you in ministry for the kingdom. God bless you and thank you for all that you do in service to Christ.
So our next speakers, this is where it's going to get fun. Our next speakers probably know this guy better than any of us here. So we're going to welcome to the stage Neil's two sons, David and Ben.
So David and I arm wrestled for whoever was going first, and I won. So I'm Ben Blair, Neil's youngest and better looking son. But that's a tough crew to follow. So thanks for letting us go after everybody, Dad. I appreciate that in the lineup. I'm sure that was intentional. When I think of my dad, a couple words come to mind: qualities and characteristics. Hardworking, loving, supportive, thoughtful, good listener, and a better storyteller. These are qualities and characteristics that I recall when I think about you. And it's not just me. I know everyone here knows that about you, either professionally or personally, and would certainly feel the same way. You're here tonight for your retirement number 3 or 4. I'm not sure which one this is, but it's certainly significant. And I just want to congratulate you on your success, not just in what you've accomplished in your professional life and what you've accomplished here as president of St. Paul, but also as a father. I said I wasn't getting emotional on what was something in the air here, up here in Kansas. A friend and a mentor, and just something that Dave and I witnessed growing up, just being a great human being. So growing up, he gave me a lot of advice, most of which I remember. But there was one particular time when I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And at that time, I was living in Dallas, and kind of had a dead-end career. It was a job that I really didn't like. I was just not happy with that part of my life. Other things were good, but that was really challenging. And the question for me was, I didn't know what to do. And for someone like me, I have a tendency to be pretty OCD. I like direction. I like to know what's going on, and I want to have it all figured out. And I went to you for the advice, and you told me that a career and a job is a lot more about having an income. Excuse me. Thanks, Dave. But you told me to find a purpose. Be intentional and thoughtful with what you do, and income is important, but find that purpose. And take pride and meaning in whatever you're going to do. Don't worry about the title. Find something you love and find that purpose. At the end of the day, the outcomes and measurables, the things that we're building towards in a career, are pretty much worthless if you don't have, if the process of getting there, you don't enjoy it. And at the time, the career that I had, the job that I had, was not the direction I wanted to go. So, and you told me you don't have to have it all figured out. Loosen up, Ben. Things are going to work out. Just go enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. So it was I think, a lesson I needed to hear at that time. And, it's put me in the place I am now. So really, really appreciate it. Voice goes up like 12 octaves. I get emotional. Jesus. This is recorded too. We got to edit some of this. So, especially for Pamela. She's looking, my wife. But you taught me another important lesson that I share with my team, which is change is something not to be feared, but really embraced in a routine part of life. And I'm going to give you that advice tonight. And it's not going to happen today and tomorrow, but soon there's going to be change. Don't be afraid. Just embrace it and really enjoy it. Okay. You've earned it. And I think most importantly, you've showed me what it is to be a good father. Always provided time and attention and love to your children, both Dave and I, no matter how busy you were professionally. So it's something that I take and a lesson that I really cherished and think about all the time when I'm busy at work or traveling. Always make time for my kids. So, thank you for these life lessons. It's a real gift. So, in close, better have something funny after this, man. I wish you the luck in retirement and all your future endeavors. I know that, retirement's not going to stop you from doing meaningful work and making a difference. So, wish you the best of luck. Thanks, Dad.
The OCD, ice cold, non-feeling younger brother. You should have used some Helvetica font though. Helvetica font next time. So I thought a lot about. I don't know why I brought this. I don't have any notes. I thought a lot about what I was going to say. And we've got some top brass here, some very, very accomplished people. And Dad, I'm sorry, Travis Kelce was supposed to be here tonight, but he had some date. I guess there's some singer-songwriter that he's with. I tried to look it up on the news, but nobody's covering it. So he apologizes. He's got his date. Maybe he'll be in here later. But anyway, there's a lot you can say about my dad, about, the distance in miles is the equivalent of traveling back and forth to the moon 76 times or something. And those, Dr. Reams, what did you guys roll in back in the day? What, Cutlass Supreme? No, that was after he brought a little money in, but they're Cutlass Sierras. Put like 5 million miles on that thing, burning up the roadway. But I want to do a little exercise here. I want you all to say something. I'm gonna say who was there, and then you're gonna say Neil Blair was there. Okay? Who was there? Okay. Who's right there? Okay, so that'll help with the story. So I'm gonna take you back when Dad was at his business. He was VP at the time, and this is probably I take your pick, 1996. But this was a typical day in the life of my father, and on the rare chance he got to come home for a few days. We got to hang out a little bit. But, excuse me, I've lived in Texas for 23 years. In October, the mountain cedar always tries to kill me, so I've been popping Zyrtex like Pez. So if I didn't bring my water up here either, so I apologize. But anyway, so this is what it would be like. Ring, 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 ring. Boys, just hold on one second. Neil Blair? Uh-huh. Betty. Oh, it's so good to hear from you. Uh-huh. Oh, your great Aunt Margaret. She died suddenly in her sleep. She was 118. Well, that must have come at a horrible shock, and of course I can. Okay. And she wanted me to do the service. Well, today's Tuesday, so are you thinking next week? Tomorrow. Okay. Well, let me just check my schedule here. And you're still in the Kansas City area, right? Oh, you've moved? Uh-huh. Sacramento. Okay. You know what? Let me just look. You know what? I can do that. I'll do that. And guess what? He would go. And they would say, well, who all was there? Well, Aunt Linda and Joe Brett. But who was there? Neil Blair was there, right? So anyway, 10 minutes would go on. We'd be talking about the Chiefs or the Royals or whatever. And then ring, 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 ring. Boys, oh, 1 second here. Hello? Larry? Oh, it's so good to hear from you. Oh, your granddaughter. Uh-huh. Her first tooth. She's lost her first tooth. Well, that's wonderful. And that Chuck E. Cheese is a great place. Yep. Uh-huh. And you're going to have a lunch? Well, that's fantastic. And you want me to bless the meal? Okay. Well, let's see. It's Tuesday, and I got to be Wednesday. Now, are you thinking next week? Because I know you're still up just over the border in Iowa, right? South Carolina. Okay. Well, you know what? Wednesday. Okay, I'll be there. And this went on and on. But I want everybody to give me a show of hands. How many times, whether it's something joyful and happy, something maybe not so happy, how many of you can say, who was there? Neil Blair was there, right? And I can tell you, whether it's a baptism, a bat mitzvah, losing your first tooth, a funeral, addiction, something not so fun, who was there? When Dr. Sample told you about his son, who was there? When Dr. Weems was looking for the new hotshot VP to, show me the money, get the development thing going, who was there? And when this place had some problems, and they didn't know what they were going to do, and they had to make that call, who was there? He's been there, he's here, and I know he will continue to be here, even in his retirement. And anytime I ever needed him, really needed him, who was there? My dad was there. So, Dad, I just want to say congratulations on an absolutely fantastic career. Time well spent. I don't know what you're going to look like not wearing a suit. I don't know what your hobbies are going to be, but maybe some golf is a good start. So I love you. Thank you for being a great dad, and thank you for always being there.
So what you all can't see is this podium is covered in pollen. It's really hard on your eyes. Ben, David and I did okay because we've got glasses. You don't have glasses, the pollen, blame it on the pollen. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, next on, we have a little presentation. Where is Mark Faulkner? There he is. Come on up, Mark. So Mark Faulkner is another board member here at St. Paul. He's also a great friend, of course, of Neil's. Neil, you come on up here too. So the board got together and with Mark's brilliance came up with a great idea of something that we thought would be, really great for Neil. So Mark, come on up.
Well, Neil Blair. How many of you have ever said no to Neil Blair? And he listened. When you say no to Neil Blair, what he hears is keep talking. Yeah, or maybe. Especially when it comes to getting money. But he has been everywhere. David, Ben, you guys are great products of Neil Blair. You did a good job. Thank you. I'm from Southwest Kansas originally, Ulysses, out by the Colorado line and the Oklahoma line, out where Melvin Winger resided. And Melvin was a very good customer and friend of mine. And one day, Melvin Winger brought Neil Blair by to see me. And did that several times. In fact, as Mel got older and his health failed, that's the only reason I'm on the board. I don't really have any skill, but I represent that area of the state. Neil traveled extensively, as you know, and his expense account must have been tremendous. The number of new cars he went through every year. Wait. I think Matt said, or you told me the other night, you had 352,000 miles on the car he's driving now, and Matt tried to get him to get a new one. No. Not only that, you talk about expense account. Has he ever stayed at any of your houses when he's traveled? Has he ever got a motel room? And what did he eat? Whatever was in our refrigerator. And he didn't check for expiration dates. He ate it anyway. Nobody has done more on less than Neil Blair. So, He's done so much for so many years for this seminary that the Board of Trustees decided we should reward him. And we decided we would give Neil $1 million. But then Matt Mills got involved and vetoed that idea, and we knew he'd just give it back anyway. So we didn't do that. So what do you get a guy who's done as much as Neil? There is nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do that really honors all that he's done for so many of us. But we came up with a small token, and there's a story behind it. But first, I want him to open this small token of our appreciation. Small token, big bag. There is some assembly required. Is it taped, Debbie? No.
How many people does it take to open a box?
Well, this is the stage. Now, let me tell you the story. It was Amy's idea. She said, "What kind of plane does Neil have?" And I said, "Well, I think he has a 182. Well, I can order a 182. I said, "That'd be great. But can you get one to match his plane?" Well, no, of course not. I said, "Well, I've got a granddaughter who's an artist. Maybe she can paint it, or at least paint the tail numbers on it or whatever." Sloan. Well, I talked to Sloan's dad, and Sloan's dad said, "I grew up in a body shop. My grandpa and my dad were body shop people. I can paint that plane." And there was one catch. I didn't have a picture of Neil's plane. And how many of you have we contacted trying to get a picture of Neil's plane? And nobody had one. Nobody had one. Cynthia tried. She didn't have one. I didn't have one. In fact, one board member looked on your Facebook page, and there was a picture of you and me with my plane. Not your plane. So, I've got to tell you this. We got the plane in a week ago. Wrong color, striped a little different. And Neil was coming back from St. Louis, and he called me. And he had some issues to talk about that night. He was a little tired. Oh, yeah. And vented, as he did. I'm like a brother. We're so close. And so I listened. The next day he calls me and apologizes. And I listen again and say, "Neil, that's what we do. That's what we do." And then he said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I thought, and he knew I'd sold my plane. I said, "Sell me half interest in your plane." "Oh, well, yeah, I could do that." I said, "Now what is it? It's a 182, right?" Yeah. "Can you send me a picture?" "Oh, yeah, I don't have any now, but I'll go to the hangar in a few days." So I keep searching. And then the next day he calls me. "I don't know if that would be such a good idea if I sold you half interest in my plane. I really like my plane, and you'd have it when I wanted it, and I'd have it when you wanted it. And I don't know that would work." And I said, "Well, yeah," and we got to talking about hangars. I still have a hangar at Table Rock Lake. that's close. And we come to Kansas City to visit grandkids. And I said, it might work. And I said, you tell me about your hangar. You get a free hangar, don't you? Well, I used to at downtown, but now I'm at Clark County Airport. Ding, ding, ding. That was a Friday night, last Friday night. Saturday morning, I look up Clark County Airport. I call this number, and you punch a number for the manager, and I get a recording and leave a message and hang up the phone. And then I call back, and I get a lineman. Oh, I can't let you in the hangar. I said, I'm 500 miles away in southwest Kansas. I don't want in the hangar. I just need some pictures. And I told him the story. I said, do you know Neil Blair? He said, we love Neil Blair. We'd do anything for Neil Blair. He is such a great guy. I said, okay, you're on my team. He sent me pictures. And Brett got it done. By the way, Neil, Alan Herndon, I ran into him. Where are you, Alan? Right here, right in the middle. Alan used to work with Neil. On the way in, he's talking to me, and he said, do you really think he's going to retire? We may change his name to Tom Brady.
So after Mark told me that story, and I actually had to Facebook friend Neil so I could see if I could find a picture on his Facebook page. But after Mark told me that story today, I said, do you still have to buy his plane? So, shocker, Neil, he's not interested in your plane to buy it. So Neil, grab your notes because you're coming up next. So I grew up in a really small Methodist church down in Urick, Missouri, Lucas United Methodist Church, if anyone knows of that. That guy there, the bishop knows, yep. The bishop grew up not far from Urick, Missouri. And all my life, St. Paul School of Theology would send pastors, new pastors, very young in their growth of being a pastor. They would send their pastors to Lucas, Missouri. And they would always come from the city. It's about 85 miles away. And my parents, who, played the piano, they were the treasurer, we were the janitors, I mowed the yard. These pastors just spent the night with us from Saturday, usually Friday, Saturday to Sunday. So my entire life, I had my two brothers, and then I had whatever St. Paul student was the pastor at Lucas United Methodist Church staying with us. So I grew up knowing all about St. Paul. Our church shepherded many, many, many students through their ministry. Bishop probably knows, down in Lucas when there's, 50 people in the congregation, we treat everyone pretty well. And, if you're still kind of learning how to be a pastor, you send them to a small town because we love on them, we feed them, we take care of them, we let them spend the night. So that was my first real interaction with St. Paul. Fast forward, I go to college, I graduate, I do my thing here. My dad passes away, and my dad was a very active member in our church. And again, Cynthia, who I work with, starts calling me, you got to meet my partner, Neil Blair. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. Well, again, she finally gets me to meet him. I have one conversation with him. And, from my whole life of watching St. Paul turn out students to become pastors, and then watching them go, and be pastors at a bigger church and a bigger church and a bigger church, to have that be my upbringing, and then to meet this man. He walked in, and the passion that he had for St. Paul blew me away. The way he talked, the man loves St. Paul. He loves St. Paul. This was not a job for him. As his son said, this was not a job for him. And he told me stories. He told me stories of the faculty, of the staff, of the donors. And his love for St. Paul, with my upbringing of shepherding St. Paul students through their ministry and through their school, was really the hook, line, and sinker for me to say, I want to be part of this. So our next guest, we're going to welcome President Blair to the podium here. And I just personally thank you for letting me make my dad proud by coming here and being on the board and continuing to help shepherd pastors through their seminary so they can go to churches. And it's because of this guy right here that I've had this opportunity. So please welcome President Blair.
Thank you very much, Dana, and thank you for saying yes to coming on the board. Such a gift. Speaking of gifts, no, I'm kidding. I think she's made her gift already this year. I'm just teasing. That's right, you have. I don't know what to say other than we all have egos. We like to be recognized, but this blows me away. And Bishop Farr, I just have to say, how kind. You've got 94 things you could be doing, and you came here tonight. And let's give our bishop a hand. I have family here tonight. My brother, Guy, and his wife. My two boys, David and Ben. My niece, Brenna, and her husband, Rob. My significant lady, Cynthia, her son, Quincy, and dear friends, donors, faculty members who I've worked with. I was sitting over there looking at each one of you, and I have a story for each one of you. But we got to get out of here pretty quick. I've been honored to be the president of St. Paul and the vice president. Beloved Weems, I've learned so much from you. It's just unbelievable what you taught me. And I always said about Lovett said, similarly, this won't be exactly right. Lovett is very methodical. He writes down a list, and he's up about 5 in the morning, and he's working on that list. And he's moving the seminary forward in every action that he takes. And what I say about Lovett, when I finally really got to know him and how he operated, I think the only mistake he made was allow me to just do my job the way I wanted to do it. But somehow it worked. And I said, whatever he couldn't figure out on the inside, maybe I could figure out on the outside. We're very different people. But you gave me a chance. You really did. And I've been honored and blessed. I said, Lovett, what do I really need to do? I don't think he said this exactly, but pretty close. I want you to go out, and I want you to ask everybody you can find to give $1,000, and don't you come back till you have some checks in your pocket. No, he didn't say that. Well, kind of he did, But if the truth be known, if I were a very wealthy man and didn't need the money, I would have done this job anyway. You see, I need people a lot more than St. Paul needed me. I love to hear everybody's story, and I can't get over that. And every one of you has an incredible story. And I have been so honored to be allowed, as I think Lovett said, pastors are so privileged to be entered into the homes. Ed Kyle, you know that. All those of you who are a pastor. We are privileged to be invited into homes for people to share their secrets of their life. And I know you who are pastors understand that. I was supposed to be a cattle buyer or maybe drill water wells. I have a business background. But as I said in a devotion I gave to the Board of Trustees, and after that devotion, they learned more about me. So I'm really lucky I'm retiring because I think they would fire me after I shared a few of my secrets. But the truth of it is, what really, I think, probably stirs our hearts is each other's stories. And what we find in that story is the love of Christ. I mean, if we took 20 people randomly from all walks of life and sat down with Jesus Christ, which one would he say, nope, you got to go? It seems in the world that we live in today, it's so easy to do that. But when I'm talking to somebody randomly, which I love, I don't know if they support Donald Trump or have loved Barack Obama, or if they're more kind of an older Eisenhower Republican or a radical leftist Democrat, just to use politics as an example. But Tex, you reminded me that Campbell, when he would be at the penitentiary where they put people to sleep, and you would have all the people that were against capital punishment and all the people that were for capital punishment lined up on either side. Will Campbell would start by saying, well, about 99% of what you people across the line there believe is what I believe. I believe that the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. Do you? Well, yes. And I bet you love your children and grandchildren, don't you? Well, of course we do. We really have in common about 99% of everything we really believe. It's that 1% that sets us apart. I don't know a lot of the people that I talk to, what they believe, where they go to church when I just talk to them, or how they feel about a certain political issue. I want to start really by, how are you feeling today? And so then if you open with that, with most people, you'll get a story. You'll get a connection. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I do it for my own selfish desire because I want the next person's story. And if I've had any success in development, it's because I have a passion to know everybody's story. And once you know their story, and the more you see them, and the more you talk to them, and the more you know them, you can't let go of them. So that's how I feel an awful lot about an awful lot of you. I don't care if I'm redirecting my life. You're not getting me out of your life. I'll be knocking your door. I might not be asking you for money, but I'm saying, hey, would you like to have a cup of coffee, Steve? How about you, Linda and Stan? We have dinner together? Doctors back there? I want you to know that I love being in love with all the people that I know. And so if I were to write a book, which I might write one in development, but Lovett Weems, you're going to have to help me. Tex Sample and others. The title of the book would be, It's All About the Money, and it's never about the money. I remember talking with somebody so nervous one day when a new possible donor, somebody recommended, owned an insurance company, maybe Mark, I think maybe from Southwest Kansas somewhere. So we met at a coffee shop, and gosh, he was nervous because he knew why I was there. And he knew that I was the development person for St. Paul. He was a committed United, he and his wife, committed United Methodist, and he was nervous. So I figured, how do I calm him down just a little bit? Oh, I'm not that pure. Of course I'm tactful to persuade people to support the seminary that I love. But I do genuinely want to know about them first. So he was sitting there very nervous and uncomfortable. And I said, Jim, I'm really excited to meet you today, and I want to get to know you and your family. And I want you to know one thing. I'm not going to ask you for money today. Which meant that I would be asking him for money someday. So now I want to close and not make this long. But I got to believe all of you, because of your generosity in your chosen field, probably identify very much with what I just said. And as I look around the room, the incredible generosity that comes out of your heart as pastors and as donors, as faculty, as staff, as my family. I know about my family and my close friends. Incredible generosity. And my boys. Oh my gosh. David and Ben, I put people to sleep talking about you. And I don't care, you've been highly successful and entrepreneurial business type guys, and so have your spouses, but I always told you, the most important thing you can do, I want you to be good mates and good fathers. I don't care about the money. But if you run short, don't call me. So I'm very proud of you. A couple of people. Tex, I mentioned this earlier, and Tex referred to the person that talked to me about going into ministry. I think that was the oddest sentence I ever heard. Ed Kyle, you knew Bill Cotton well. You were district superintendent in Iowa, and others knew Bill Cotton. Arden, he was your pastor at Grace in Des Moines. Bill Cotton knocked on my door. Now, let's just say that Bill Cotton's a really nice guy, but he's not one of the most handsome people in the world, right? He knocks on my window at a park when I'm picking up my sister, and he's picking up his daughter from a 4-H camp or something. It's like 100 degrees, and I'm sound asleep in the car with the air conditioning blasting. He knocks in the car, and he said, I look up at him. He looks like Ed Sullivan. Oh, my God, who is this guy? I open the window. He says, well, I'm the new pastor in Dayton, Iowa, and I hear you ought to be in the ministry. I wanted to say, are you out of your mind? Well, I don't think I am, or I didn't. He kind of assumed I was going to say that. He said, I want you to come by the house. I want to talk to you about ministry. Well, down deep, I really had thought about it, even as a rotten kid as I was, and my older brother Guy can attest to that. Our mother said that she got all her white hairs from me, but she would laugh. But Bill Cotton brought me to Kansas City, and I visited St. Paul. I met Tex Sample. I met the president and a few other professors, and I began to see myself because of not so much about what I could do to convince people about the Christian faith, but the entitlement I might have if I go to seminary to build all these relationships with people, which ultimately, I think that may be what Jesus did and what he would do. So I want to recognize Bill Cotton, who passed away, a couple of years ago, 1.5 years, 2 years ago. But what a great gift to ministry and changed my life. And Bishop Farr, I know you've shared a story or two about how pastors affected your life and how you got called back a little bit early from Perkins School of Theology and had to finish up a course at St. Paul. I hope you've forgiven us for that. It wasn't my fault. I got to give thanks to my mom and dad. This is a little different tie. I know you think this is the latest craze in New York City, right? No. This is my father's tie. We grew up. We have Blair LLC farms in Iowa. My nephew calls it now. And we all worked hard as brothers with my mom and dad on the farm. And I just wanted to wear this tie tonight in honor of my parents. I just saw it today and I thought, you know, they're up in the grandstands watching, keeping an eye on us. And I am so proud that I had my parents. Taught us to work hard, want us to get an education, want us to find something valuable. And I'll guarantee you, anytime that Methodist church opened, my mom and dad were there. And I thought one day, I told them, I said, well, do we really have to go to Sunday school? After I picked myself up off the floor, we got in the car and went to Sunday school. Thank God we did. I think of the teachers that I had in school. Well, Sunday school teachers, the professors. I think about Lovett. Got to mention Lovett again. And the professors. Take sample, the impact you had in my life. All of the professors I see out there today, the donors, oh my gosh, the sacrifices that many of you have made and a lot of others that are not in the room. My dear friends, I met Cynthia Garner back in 15. Why she went out with me, she did, and I'm so pleased that she did. We've had a lot of fun together. I also you got to be very careful when you pick individuals. But some of you know these people. Melvin and Mona Winger from Western Kansas became like a second set of parents to me. Oddly enough, Mel was the same age as my father, born in 1927, but became a second father, and Mona almost like a second mother to me. They lost 2 adult children to automobile accidents. Unbelievable. And were resilient to make it through that, still keep their faith and their generosity and support for so many things, and a great support to me. It's a Rusty Crampton. A few of you know her, lives in St. Louis. That was my home away from home. I didn't have a key. I knew how to get into her house. I had my own beautiful room and my own private bathroom. And she would just say, well, when you're coming to me, if you want to, please let me know, and lived in one of the prettiest places on the face of the earth. And as she would go, an old farm girl from Iowa moved to St. Louis. I live in Ladue. And it is quite a nice place. And it was my home away from home. So Rusty, I think you're watching this thing tonight. Know that I love you. She's 97. And if you think you know a lot about computers and your cell phone, you got a second thing coming. Rusty Crampton teaches me. I can fly an airplane upside down, but I'm not sure much about what to do with my cell phone. Well, she helps me out. Another woman, beloved, who you knew from Iowa, Fern Underwood. She was Miss Methodism. She had a progressive, wonderful, loving, thoughtful way about her, and she lived to be 102 years old in her own home. And it was a joy. She always had people coming to see her, and she always wondered how I was. How were David and Ben? So you see, this was not a job, it was a calling. Y'all were my pastors and my friends. And my boys, I was privileged to raise from the time they were about 9 and 11. One quick story. I traveled a great deal, but when I was home, I fixed them breakfast, and they had to be out the door around 7:30 in the morning. So I would get up and lived 2-story house. And the boys, I'd say, boys, breakfast will be ready in about 20 minutes. Okay, Dad. So I had breakfast ready. I laid it out. Whatever they wanted. If one wanted pancakes and the other wanted eggs, I made it because I traveled a great deal, so I was going to spoil them for breakfast before I took them to school. So then it got to be 10 minutes before breakfast time. Boys, breakfast is just about ready. Okay, Dad, we'll be right there. So with 3 minutes to go, I don't know how they threw their clothes on so fast, but I went on the step. And they scattered down those steps like you wouldn't believe. And we had breakfast. But before they left, caught the bus or I gave them a ride, where do you think you're going? I don't care how old you get, you're not going out that door until I get a hug and a kiss. I don't care if you're boys or not. Okay, Dad. So all of the things I learned, I think I learned from all of the people that I grew up with. And many of you. Gene Lowry, nobody plays the piano like you do. It teaches how to preach. My gosh, Tech Sample's written 12 books, and you still have outsold him with your one book. And you're upgrading that book. The Lowry Loop. And Sample still hasn't forgiven you for writing that darn thing. I've got had the best job in the world. We have built an incredible team of staff members that are so much brighter and more gifted than me. And our faculty, bar none. You will not find a better, more committed faculty to help men and women respond to their call to ministry. When I would look in the classroom, they're excited. Joshua Bartholomew has come to us, and poor Joshua, he'd be teaching in the morning, and it'd be time for lunch. They're like chickens. They follow him to the community place where he can't get away from them because they still want to hear from him. All of our faculty are like that. I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings because I'll leave you out. I just thank you for your friendship and for this opportunity to be spoiled rotten. I really didn't want this. Of course I got an ego. It'd be wonderful, but it would be so much easier not to do something like this. But, oh my gosh, I am so touched. And I see Joe Carraway back there. Got him to come to church at Stanberry. He ended up starting being a kind of a preacher. Started to speak at churches. Alan Hernan, we traveled together 1,000,000 miles. And we've told some crazy stories. I'm sorry if I've missed some of you, but know that I love you and I care for you. And I appreciate your attendance. One last thing I want to say, you can't believe how blessed you are with a person that will be your next president. He has so successfully turned 2 institutions around. He's been eating Methodist pie since he was a little boy. He's been a dean. He's been a professor. He actually has a doctor's degree. I don't even have anything past a master's degree. And he has the detail and ability already that's been proven. I've handed him so many things. I'm a one-trick pony. I know maybe how to go out and talk to people and raise money and learned a lot about how to be president. But when Jay came, he took on so many of those responsibilities, and he is your new president as of January 1. Jay and his beautiful, lovely, as he calls her, management at home, Janae, would you two please stand and let's give you a round. That's it. I thank you all for coming tonight, and I know I'll get down the road and I'll think, geez, I wish I'd have said that. But I think the world of all of you, and I appreciate you coming here tonight. Thank you so much.
So this pretty much concludes what was a wonderful, wonderful night celebrating Neil. I'd like to welcome Dr. Young Ho Chun to the podium to offer our benediction.
Neil, I'm so grateful to have been invited for the benediction. Before the benediction, I do have several stories, but I'm not going to tell all of it, but a couple of characteristics. Neil before he became a president, Neil and I traveled to East Asia, Korea, China, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And you get to know a person in traveling. He's a good traveler. He eats everything. He has no bones to discriminate against anything. Very inclusive. That also is connected to his capacity for friendship. Everybody today heard about his capacity, a spacious capacity for friendship. And this also links to another characteristics. Paul Tillich characterized Sigmund Freud to be the thinker representing the Protestantism. And Protestantism's anthropology, a radical anthropology. Freud once asked himself, the purpose of life is what? Purpose of life is to work and to love. Neil demonstrates that. Tonight, that has been verified by many witnesses. I learned a lot. I remember when Dr. Wims retired, in my speech, I said, when Dr. Wims are on the move for development, numbers are going to him. I don't know why, but numbers are going to him. So numbers in money going up. In Neil's case, maybe numbers may not be coming, but mammons are coming. He has a talent to make mammon, a god of money, jealous because he's worshiping God so well. So monies are coming to get him, but he gets the money instead. And that's why St. Paul's School of Theology is where it is. I have written down a benediction. In Korean church tradition, benediction is a serious business, not the end of a small mumbo-jumbo signaling end of the event. The church, therefore, gives an honorarium for benediction. No, I'm not asking for honorarium. But benediction is that serious business. It's not going to be short and sassy, but it's going to be thoughtful. At least I'm trying to be. Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, you are hidden from our sight. You are beyond the understanding of our minds. Your thoughts are not as our thoughts. Your ways are past finding out. Yet you have breathed your Spirit into our lives. Yet you have formed our minds to seek you. Yet you have inclined our hearts to love you. Yet you have made us restless for the rest that is in you. Yet you have planted within us a hunger and thirst that make us dissatisfied with all the joys of this world. O Lord, we praise and magnify your name, that thus you have set your seal upon our inmost beings, not leaving us to our own poor and petty selfhoods, or to the sole empire of animal passion and desire, but calling us to be an heir of your eternal kingdom. We praise you for that knocking at our heart's door, that wants of your waiting presence. We praise you for your hand upon our lives and for the sure knowledge that however I may falter and fail, yet underneath are your everlasting presence. O God, who alone knows what lies before us this day, grant that in every hour of it we may stay close to you. Now we lift up our compliment and praise and appreciation of your faithful son, Neil Blair, who has served this institution humbly yet faithfully over last 7 years and beyond. Grant him your bounteous blessings and direct him as he redirects his life of service for another chapter. Grant him as well health and happiness as he may face new challenges and opportunities. We also pray for the new leader of this ship. Grant J. Simmons with your wisdom, insight, foresight, vision, bold imagination, grounded in the heritage and legacy. Help him lead the School of Theology to become what it should be. Let us be together to support him as a community of faith and love. Help us be in the world, yet not of it. At the same time, lead us to be truly of the world, not merely in the world. Let us use this world without abusing it. Let us not shrink from any sacrifice from your will may demand. Suggest, direct, control every moment of our minds. We lift these prayers of benediction in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Neil, I'm standing here in front of the United Methodist Building in Washington, D.C., the only non-government building on the Federal Mall. It's been here since 1922. It shows the long, deep, and rich history of our church. And speaking of the church, I've witnessed firsthand your stewardship at the St. Paul School of Theology. And I must say that with your farming background and your ability to use that background is nothing short of astounding, because you certainly know how to serve as a United Methodist gardener, because you have the capacity for cultivating and unifying people from various parts of the nation, as well as various parts of theology. And so you've caused the soul of the seminary to blossom. Farmer Neil, in these rather turbulent times where we have cultural wars and polarized politics and even church-related holy hostility, it's important that I, as well as others, express publicly our regard and respect for someone like you, who leaves a legacy of ascendancy and a person who worked with people from all kinds of backgrounds. That's what we need, not only in the country, but certainly in our church. And what better place of getting that started than in the St. Paul School of Theology Methodist? Borrowing the words of the great apostle Paul to his young seminary student, Timothy, he said, guard the good deposits that were entrusted to you. Guard it with the help of the Holy Spirit who lives in us. And I think those words are powerful today. They are more significant perhaps today than they were 2,000 years ago when Paul wrote that famous letter to Timothy. Neil, you made many deposits, friendship, deposits in understanding, deposits for people who were interested in supporting St. Paul School of Theology. And so I hope that this video, along with a lot of things that other people are saying and doing, will help you guard all of the good deposits you've made. And we have a responsibility as well to guard those great deposits that you've made. You have made significant deposits, and yet to be born St. Paul students will benefit from your deposits. I love you, man.
I wanted to share a couple of thoughts in regard to the retirement celebration that we had the other night. I want to thank Sally Firestone for writing the introductory prayer that was read by my niece, Brenna Hyatt. Sally was unable to attend, and also I wanted to mention my thanks to Roger and Angie Marshall for making the airplane possible for me to use in my work at St. Paul School of Theology. Thank you.